Greetings and welcome to week 6. I'm releasing week 6 early because I realized that there are two, not like huge assignments, but like assignments that I want you to have time to be thinking about in week 6 that kind of dominate this week's activities. So it's getting released early with copious assignment descriptions. And so in this overview, I am going to work through what these pieces are. So this overview will eventually be here, and then I didn't change out learning goals yet. So first thing that we're going to do is we're focusing this week on vocabulary instruction. And so I have a quick-ish, it's about 20 minutes of me talking about some different things that we want to be aware of when we're talking about vocabulary. When people are talking about tiers of vocabulary, what do they mean? And then I start to dive into some of the things that you'll experience or read about experience in these two readings here. The first are 2 chapters from the book Bringing Words to Life, and what's going to happen within that chapter is really thinking about why vocabulary is important, and for us in content area literacies, the vocabulary that we equip kids with to use both in our class as well as outside of our class is really, really important. And then the second piece is a menu of instructional activities. So as you're thinking about what vocabulary you want to teach your students, what are some activities that you can use to actually do that aren't things like go look it up in the dictionary or the glossary, because those are not effective. So that's the first piece, is vocabulary. And then we are going to let go of the night diary after this week, but I wanted to tie the night diary back into thinking about how we can use that within content area literacies. So the big thing that I want you to pay attention to this week is with the night diary, an authentication project for historical fiction. And that's coming out of this article here. And what this does is it really pushes students to be thinking through what makes this text believable as a representation of the particular time that it took place in. And the thing I like about a authentication project is that you can adapt it to a variety of content areas. You can utilize this when you're thinking about a science-based article. What are the questions that we have around this article? How do we know that this person is qualified enough and is representing this particular science concept accurately and appropriately? We can also do that in math when we're thinking about how are articles representing stats and numbers in appropriate ways. So there's lots of adaptation. So with that article under your belt, and you really need to read the article before you move into the assignment, what I'm now asking you to do is to be digging into that process that's outlined in the authentication project article. So you're going to be looking at kind of what your question categories are, and there's examples of this within the article on page 500, as I've outlined here. But you're going to be thinking through what are some of the text information that can be verified from informational sources as coming out of the book, The Night Diary, and what are some possible questions related to each of these categories. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to do is thinking about those questions that you want to explore a little bit more. Now, sorry, dog, yike. You're going to want to be thinking through then which of these questions do you want to actually go into? What can you use? How can you find credible resources that will validate this text? And so you want to be looking through the text. Where do you want to validate some of these things, and how do you want to verify them? And there's an example of this on page 499 of the article. And I've provided a template here. I'm trying to walk away from the grumbly dog and it's not working. Yike. So the template is here. The assignment is due on August 7th at the end of the day, and you can turn it in at this link here. The other assignment that you have for this week is an AOW synthesis. You've read multiple articles of the week in this class, and so this assignment really is two pieces. The first is a reflection piece, a synthesis piece across all of your articles of the week. And so there's 3 questions that I want you to answer in about 2 single space pages. And this should look familiar to you. This is the comprehension continuum that we talked about at the beginning of this semester. And I want you to be thinking about this particular model as you are working through your response. So that's really you as a teacher and as a reader, and you can go back into your AOW reflections and build up evidence from those spaces. The second part of it is going to be a mini lesson, and we're not going to teach this mini lesson, but we are going to plan for it and write it. So I've given you all of the steps from re-engaging the text. Which article do you want to go back to? Which one is most interesting to you? And it might actually be that the strategy is more interesting to you, so hold off on that. So here's all of the steps. And when you're thinking about the options for a mini lesson, I've created this table. There are 4 AOWs that are available for this particular assignment. So I've identified focus strategies and where they come from out of Beers and Propst. And so what you want to be doing is thinking about this AOW in terms of writing a mini lesson around it. And when you're writing a mini lesson, you want to write that mini lesson in conversational form. So what I've done here is provided a template, and then there's also an example right here. And that example, this should look familiar. It's the example that we did in VoiceThread. So you can utilize that as a reference as you work on your own. And that's kind of our week. And that's going to be due, hold on, I will update this with the due date. But those are the big projects for week 6. So look at this assignment for the due date because I wrote it down on the paper that I left on the counter when I tried to avoid the yappy dog. So that's week 6. Again, don't feel like you need to get started on this all now because we're still in week 5, but I wanted to make sure that this was out there so that you had an idea of what was coming and had time and space to work through it. All right, I think that's it.